the end of the day, you know, you're still you. You know, nothing's going to take that away from you.
It doesn't, you know, just because you've got Parkinson's doesn't mean you're suddenly your life's going to go like this. That's just not how it happens for lots of people.
I thought, my God, I've got this disease. That's what I'm going to be very, very soon. I'm 9 years on and I've got an incredible life.
Parkinson's doesn't stop you. Parkinson's is just the start of a journey, a new chapter.
1 in 20 people with Parkinson's are under the age of 50. But what is it like to live with Parkinson's as a young person? Rigidity, insomnia, painful cramps followed by tremor, uncontrollable muscle movements. It's a condition that is hard to diagnose and sometimes hidden. I look into the lives of people with young families in the midst of their career and travelling all across the world to see how Parkinson's isn't just an older person's disease and how they live with a condition that only gets worse while still having the rest of their lives ahead of them. Rob Jakes was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 35. His life has changed completely, but he still races remote control cars most weekends. In the last few months, his condition has gradually become worse.
Well, I get very, quite major dystonic cramping. So when I'm off, it's, it's really difficult for me to drive, and you know, all these events are, you know, all over the place. You know, I used to go all around the country.
His symptoms don't stop him, but they have made life more difficult. The toll of travelling and competing has made it hard for him to keep up with the sport.
So I use my mobile phone to keep track of my medication. That's telling me now that at 3 o'clock I should have taken my meds. These two make me feel better, and this one is supposed to, I don't know, like level it out across the day, once every 4 hours. Or no, I think it's free now anyway. Don't try this at home, kids.
David Plummer was diagnosed at 39. His career as a wildlife photographer never stopped, and 9 years on, he has a published book and is still travelling the world. In the UK, he's the resident photographer for the Wildlife Trust in Sussex. He runs a business maintaining hides and guiding people to photograph wildlife.
So we're just going on to the Knepp estate, which is 3,500, it's a little bit more than that now actually, 3,500 acre rewilding project in Sussex. And then we're going to bait all the sites, and then hopefully we're going to photograph kingfishers a little bit later.
The first site he set up was a hotspot for kingfisher birds, but along with his business, he has been working on making the site accessible for people with disabilities.
So this runway of oak planks I put in, it's at the width of wheelchair wheels, so I can get people in wheelchairs in to photograph kingfishers. And to be honest, that's good for me because I think it keeps me going. You know, it's a real slog here, especially in winter, getting around. It's 3 times harder than in the summer walking around, and I think that carrying stuff and lugging stuff really slows down the decline. I think it's just like exercise, but in an unstructured way.
Although she isn't chasing wildlife, Sarah Wiltshire is busy chasing a 2-year-old and working full-time. She was diagnosed only last year at 37, and she is still coming to terms with being told that she has young onset Parkinson's.
Generally, I'm largely sort of getting to the point where I'm okay with things now. I mean, it still plays on my mind. There isn't a day goes by when I don't have, you know, I mean, it's in my head all the time, I suppose, like a little voice talking to me. Because traditionally it has, has been a disease that more, sort of elderly people tend to get. There isn't much around for the younger groups, really.
Parkinson's at a young age often takes time to diagnose because it isn't the first thing you associate with someone under 40. Sarah started to get symptoms soon after her pregnancy with her daughter Elizabeth, and she began to think it was linked to being a new mother.
Because I was having problems with my left arm. It had got I thought it had got weak. I think that was probably the mistake I was making when I was Googling my own symptoms. And it wasn't weak, it was stiff. And I thought it was like a postnatal depression type thing that I was experiencing, because obviously Elizabeth wasn't even, well, when I started to experience the symptoms, wasn't even one, she was still a very small baby. And I just thought, got a bit of baby blues type thing, but actually with hindsight, it wasn't that at all. It was obviously the Parkinson's.
Although being diagnosed with Parkinson's at a young age isn't common, those who have the condition don't waste the time they have. Adventurer Alex Flynn has travelled the world since getting Parkinson's at 36, but it takes a lot of hard work to maintain the determination to run hundreds of miles non-stop.
Mental strength, you've got to have it. And when I was running across Europe in 2011, I suffered a stress fracture to my right tibia on day 3. And I carried on running on it for 400 miles. So I think if you can put up with the feeling of almost like a piece of 2x4 being smashed into your front of your shin every footfall, then I think you can overcome anything. Yeah.
Alex started a 10 million metre challenge to run, climb and cycle across the globe, all to raise awareness of Parkinson's. But he doesn't think people know enough about how the condition affects those who are at a working age.
The fact that you'll probably end up unemployed, and what do you do with the fact that you're not going to die very quickly? You've got a long stint ahead, losing your abilities. They won't get better, yet I have to pay for all my prescriptions. People don't understand that. Where do you get the money from? How many years do I have to pay for that? I'm not 60 yet. Not 50 yet.
So what is Parkinson's, and how does it affect young people? Parkinson's is the loss of dopamine in the brain, which controls the way we move. Those with young onset Parkinson's can get muscle cramps, insomnia, depression, constipation, abnormal posture, memory loss, stiffness, slowness and speech problems. So there's more to Parkinson's than just tremors. After a long day racing in the local remote control car competition in Nottingham, Rob and his wife Lil talk about how his symptoms have gotten worse over the last 2 years.
I mean,
it's impacted on every aspect of our lives, hasn't it? So he has to wear a pump for 24-hour infusion of medication. He has injections every day. He takes however many pills, 7 times a day, 8 times a day.
Being a young couple in their 30s, they didn't expect Rob to be diagnosed with Parkinson's at 35.
Well, the neurologist said you were the second youngest person he'd ever diagnosed. People are quite prejudiced sometimes, aren't they? And
yeah.
It's happened to you a couple of times now, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, I got kicked out of Hooters for being too drunk. Come on, you've had far too many. I was like, mate, I think I'd had 1 pint about 4 hours before that.
They just came up and kicked him out.
Right, so, but yeah, basically.
Without giving you a chance to explain.
Yeah, I know. That was the worst bit.
Rob also has a daughter who doesn't live with him but often visits during school holidays.
She is really understanding, and she's fantastic with, she can kind of spot when you're kind of off now, can't she? And she's like, do you need some tablets, Dad, or do you need some medication? And she's really good. And I mean, 13-year-olds shouldn't have to deal with this. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, and she deals with it in the best way that she can, doesn't she?
Oh, totally.
And she'll come and give you a cuddle and try and make you feel better.
After baiting all of the sites, David set up a hide and sat patiently waiting for a kingfisher to appear.
All those fish we put in an hour ago were gone. I've seen them eat fish, probably sort of the equivalent of me eating my leg. There's one behind us. Get ready.
And finally, a kingfisher appeared, after only an hour in the hide, and David was able to capture this shot. Although he has a successful photography career, it wasn't easy when he was first diagnosed.
Well, initially there were the dark days, so I thought it was all over, and so did quite a few editors actually, because once I told people, just to let you know, I've got Parkinson's disease, which I didn't do widely, some editors sort of refused, well, didn't refuse, I just never heard from them again. It's almost as if they had written you off.
But he shows no sign of slowing down, and Parkinson's won't stop him from photographing wildlife all across the world. David wants to challenge himself with diving kingfishers, big cats in Africa, and his many adventures ahead. After playing at the park with Elizabeth and her husband Keith, Sarah talks about her future with a neurodegenerative disease.
And I sort of, initially, every time we were thinking about things we might do in the future with Elizabeth, my mind would always sort of wander and think, oh, maybe I won't be able to do that, you know, maybe I would. Like we've been talking about going to, we want to go to Disneyland in Florida when she's 5. And then we were hoping to go back again when she's about 12 and she can go on all the big roller coasters. And when we've spoken about this a couple of times, my mind sort of wanders and I think, oh, but by the time she's 12, I might not be able to, I might be struggling with that kind of holiday or something.
Sarah wants people to know that it's healthy to go through stages of being angry and upset. Parkinson's isn't easy, but with the support of her family, it's something Sarah has come to terms with.
The whole thing, it is a surreal experience, it really is. And yeah, I don't think, and I can still vividly remember how it, you know, what it was all like when I got diagnosed, and the weeks afterwards actually, and the other things that have happened since then, just stick with you. But the longer the time passes, the easier it gets, definitely. You have to kind of hang in there.
Paying for prescriptions and finding support can be a problem for those with Parkinson's. Despite having had the condition for a decade, Alex can still run marathons and climb mountains, but has struggled to get a job.
You know, I've sat in interviews. The guy opposite you is looking at you like, what's wrong with this guy? Has he got a drink problem? Has he got a drug problem? Has he got somewhat mental problem? What's wrong with this guy? And you can see it written across the back of his eyes, and you say, oh, that's my Parkinson's. They say, oh no, we're an equal opportunities employer. And you never hear back, because there's always somebody more qualified. You end up feeling like you need to shut out society and people because of the way you feel about the way you're shaking, the way you feel about the way you're presenting yourself, the fact that you might be able to walk properly, but hell, you can run.
Alex isn't in the early days of his disease anymore, but has had a slow progression since he was diagnosed at 36. He wants people to know that Parkinson's affects people in different ways.
Parkinson's disease has got many varieties. I think it's a bit like going into an ice cream parlour. You don't know what flavour you're going to get until you get there, and then you get the flavour, but you don't necessarily have the choice. So some people have the aggressive form of Parkinson's that comes on and debilitates them, and through a very short period of time they struggle with it and then they go and pass on. Other people like myself have very slow onset Parkinson's.
But 26 countries later, in 6 different continents, Alex has raced over 10,000 kilometers around the planet, including through the Amazon jungle and across America. He still has a lot of plans and will continue adventuring until his Parkinson's stops him.
I want to climb Everest. Although a friend of mine said, why the hell do you want to climb that bloody monstrosity? There are far better mountains to climb. But I think standing on top of the world and putting Parkinson's on top of the world would be really cool.
There may not be a cure just yet, but treatments are improving. There's still a lot of work to do with prescriptions, benefit payments, research and awareness of the condition worldwide. Adapting to life with Parkinson's is not what these 4 people thought they would be doing in their 30s, but Parkinson's won't stop them from raising toddlers, travelling the world, or proving that life doesn't end at diagnosis.